This is Super Yacht News with the ESIS-man.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do a follow-up video on the Lady M sinking, fire and sinking. I've got some more information and I wanted to go through it. I was going to do a regular video with the graphics and stuff, but it's just I want to get this out tonight and it's just a little bit time consuming to do it that way, so I decided that I'd just film it like this. So basically, after the last video, I've seen some conflicting information in the press. I went to a website called LiguriaNautica.com, which is an Italian website, which is Liguria is the area where this happened, and they've got a story which is straight from Olbia Search and Rescue, which is the search and rescue that deals with that area. And there seems to be a bit of a conflict with the timeline. Also, I was contacted by the first vessel that responded to the distress call. They were asked to respond by the search and rescue. But anyway, let's get into it anyway. So basically, the story is, this is translated from Italian. So at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, the 25th of August, the yacht, motor yacht Lady MM, launched a distress message. Immediately intercepted by operations room of the Olbia Coast Guard, which located the mega yacht about 50 miles off Capo Comino, so 50 miles offshore. Two fast search and rescue patrol boats left their moorings from the port of Olbia, while a Coast Guard helicopter took off from the Cagliari airbase. Right, so that's what they said on the website there. So they said that immediately 6 a.m. they got the report. They launched two boats and a helicopter. Okay, so what Olbia Coast Guard also did is they contacted a boat that was the closest in the area to where Lady MM was sending the distress signal. The boat was called Sailing Yacht Adea, and this is I actually got some information directly from them. After obviously saw my previous video, so that I'm going to read it verbatim. So they said, we unfortunately witnessed the sinking of Lady MM from our sailing yacht Adea. We received a distress call from Porto Cervo Radio, which is the search and rescue, which is the headquarters of the radio in Porto Cervo, at 6 a.m. and we were asked to return as we were the closest boat. So that confirms that the distress call from the boat was received. I have a feeling this was an electronic distress call, a DSC message, which I'll get into in a little bit, but I can't be sure about that, but I just have that feeling. Anyway, they received the distress call. So at 6 a.m. Porto Cervo contacted this boat because they were the closest boat to the area, and they asked them to go back. Unfortunately, it was a sailing yacht, and they had to go against the wind. So he says, after 3 hours of returning 12 miles against the wind in 2-meter waves, we reached simultaneously as a tiny Coast Guard boat, CP-802. So they arrived at the same time. So during all the time, we tried to contact via VHF radio, Porto Cervo radio, without any reply. And also they tried to contact Lady MM via channel 16, which is the emergency channel. Lady MM at that moment was not fully burning. Nobody could be seen on board. 2 life rafts have been deployed, of which one was floating unopened in the sea. The other was upside down in the sea, and no persons could be discovered. So the upside down lifeboat, that can happen when you launch it because they're inflatable. So when you pop it and it launches and then it drops down, it can flip over. In actual fact, part of our training is that we have to write an upside down life raft. That's part of the training that we do in our survival training. So he says, and then he says, only 3 hours later, I assume it's a man, I don't know, it might be a woman. Only 3 hours later, the Coast Guard sends their helicopter. So as the first search and rescue boat had not enough fuel on board, was unable to launch a search. So we were searching for 1.5 hours with binoculars for survivors. Only at approximately 11 a.m, Porto Cervo radio received a VHF call from Lady MM's tender that the 17 passengers were heading to the coast. So Porto Cervo radio received a message via VHF audio that they were all safe and they were heading in. So So he says, unbelievable that the helicopter was only deployed more than 4 hours after the distress call. And unbelievable that the Coast Guard had no fuel to look for survivors. And unbelievable that the TT Lady MM, that's the tender for Lady MM, didn't react on our VHF calls on channel 16, as they obviously were within our reach. Very scary morning. And that's from the captain of Sailing Yacht Adaya. All right, so that's the conflicting stories that I've seen. I've heard from somebody who was there, and so it seems to be conflicting with what the Coast Guard is saying. Also, when you look at the timestamp on the video footage, which was shot by the search and rescue helicopter, it's much later in the day. I think it's around 11 a.m. Also, if you look at the photograph that was sent to me from the captain of the sailing yacht, and look at the footage that's shot by the helicopter, the photograph shows that the boat looks intact with smoke billowing from it, and the video footage from the helicopter, the superstructure is almost completely gone already. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit, I wanted to get through, there was a lot of questions about the way all the equipment that they have on board to make distress calls, and there is usually quite a lot of equipment, but it depends on the size of the vessel and the type of vessel, basically, whether it's a passenger ship, a full passenger ship, or a pleasure yacht and stuff. They have to have a certain level of equipment. Many of them have more equipment that they're required to by law, but because of that, I don't know really what they had, but this is probably what they had on board. So I'll go through that in a second, but there are two ways basically to make a distress call with a VHF radio or a medium frequency or high frequency radio. There's an audio message, and there's something called DSC, which is digital selective calling. So a voice call would consist of the following details, and it would go something like this. So it'd be Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Motor Yacht Lady Mic Mic. That's a phonetic alphabet for MM. And they'd say the name 3 times. So Lady Mic Mic, Lady Mic Mic, Lady Mic Mic. Call sign. Every boat has a call sign. MMSI number is the number of the radio that you're calling from. And our position is GPS position. And then the message, we are on fire. We require immediate assistance. We have 17 souls on board. It would go something like that. It might be a little bit different, but that's more or less how it would go. On another vessel, you'd have to actually hear that call. Now, the other way you can make a call is by doing something called a DSC, or digital selective call. And basically on the front of these radios, there's a button, and it says distress on it. It's usually got a little flip over plastic thing so you don't accidentally press it. And you can open that thing and you press that button, and then it will broadcast an emergency signal digitally. So it will send out this message, and any vessel that's within the distance, within a receiving range, or any search and rescue place, they'll receive this noise, really annoying noise from the radio. And when they press that button, they acknowledge that call. But until they do, it will keep going. And in that message, in that digital message, there will be the same information: the call sign, MMSI number. And if that radio is connected to GPS, it will also send the GPS location. So if you only get that message and then you don't get any audio call, then you will assume they're in trouble and we need to send search and rescue. And they'll probably try to call them on the radio to get in contact with them. But if they don't, then even more. Then you think, well, we've got to get out there. All right, so. So other items on board that they may have been able to use to make a distress call. So you've got the VHF radios, as we discussed. HF radios also have DSC button on them. The other things are most super yachts now, well, all super yachts I would imagine have VSAT, which is the satellite internet. And as a result of that, you can make voice calls using, usually you have a couple of VoIP lines that comes with it. Most of the companies that sell internet, like Omni Access and Priva and those companies, they'll give you 2 VoIP lines included, like with a US number and a UK number, whatever you want. So you can make satellite calls. So they work obviously all around the world. Possibly have a mini M satellite phone, which is it looks like those old car phones, and it's hardwired, and there's a satellite antenna up on the roof, up on the top deck, usually quite small, and you can just make phone calls from those. Also, a handheld iridium satellite phone, which is something that you see in the movies a lot, where they have that, they flip out that long antenna, and it's got like quite thick antenna on it. You flip them out and you make phone calls on those. Usually those are part of the bag, the go bag that you grab when there's an emergency, which you take down to the lifeboat. And also there's something called an EPIRB, which is an emergency position indicating radio beacon. And this has got the same information in the call sign, GPS location, and there are a couple of, it's like a small unit with an antenna on top, and you can activate this manually by just switching it on, and then it will broadcast on, I think it's 403 megahertz it broadcasts on, and it will broadcast an emergency signal. These usually have two of these on board. One of them is usually on the bridge, and one of them is usually in a hydrostatic release device, which is usually up on the top deck. And if the vessel sinks, then it floats free, and then it activates when it comes in contact with the water. I didn't hear anything about those happening, but because this boat completely burnt out, it didn't sink. That's designed for a boat that sinks and then it floats free. But this boat was, I mean, you've seen the footage, it was completely destroyed by the time it sank. So that probably wouldn't have happened anyway. So they were 50 miles out. So the cellular phones, I saw a couple of comments saying, why didn't they just use a cellular phone? Well, they wouldn't work 50 miles out. You can't, usually, in my own experience, the furthest out I've ever been where I've got a signal was about 6 miles. Any further than that, you probably won't get a signal. So that's the kind of equipment that they have on board, most likely. Whether or not they could have used any of it, I mean, it's the way the timeline of events from the testimony of the crew, it seems to have all happened quite quickly. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, 5 a.m. they noticed the fire, and 6 a.m. they made the first distress call. Well, the first period they would have been trying to fight that fire, and they would have been fully involved in trying to fight that fire. And yeah, I mean, whether or not they could have called earlier, you know, you just have to assume that they were busy fighting that fire. I think from the point of view of the captain, I saw some comments about the captain. He's responsible. Yeah, he is responsible for all those lives on board. That's his main priority, is to get everyone away. So as far as that's concerned, it's a win for the captain, because he got away from that vessel with everybody alive. Nobody was hurt. So that's a good result for him. As far as the insurance fraud comments go, I mean, you know, I know insurance fraud happens. I don't think this is a case of it, though. If you're going to fight your own boat, you don't do it with you on it, and you don't do it when you at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the ocean with rough weather. I mean, think about it. Think about you. It's your boat, and you're thinking about, I'm gonna torch my boat because I want the insurance money. You're gonna do it 50 miles out at sea in 2-meter waves with your kids on board. No, I don't think so. You know, the accidents happen, and I think this was an accident, and I think that the crew did a good job under the circumstances based on what we know. I mean, obviously we're only going to know we only know what we've heard in the media so far. So there will be an investigation, but it's because the boat's completely destroyed and sank. So there's only going to be basically the testimony of the people on board, really. The report that report comes up, they'll obviously look back over the scheduling of maintenance and stuff, operational equipment and all that stuff. But that report's probably at least a year away. But anyway, I wanted to get this video out. If you've got any questions, let me know, and we'll talk about it in the comments. But you know, the insurance fraud thing, you know, a lot of people. I mean, I've made a few videos now about things, and then there's the amount of people that say insurance fraud, but it's very, very unlikely, especially with a full crew on board. And I don't know whether they were charter guests or whether it's the people who own the boat who were on board, but I mean, it's very unlikely. You're not going to put yourself and your family at risk like that. So yeah, okay, guys, I'm gonna end it there. But let me know what you think, and let's talk about it in the comments. And like I said, if I find any more information out, then I'll be sure to put it on to do an update. All right, guys, take it easy. Bye-bye.
If you have any more information, please be sure to get in touch. And please be sure to subscribe for updates on this story and others.